Your death won't come easily.
Hello, Sean of the Lore Hunter here, and this is Sekiro So Far, a series where I discuss everything we've learned about the upcoming action game, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. This is Appendix episode 3.3, and holy shit do we have a lot to talk about. There were a whole bunch of events around the world where content creators and journalists got to spend a few hours with a nearly final build of the game, and just recently got to share their experiences in 20 minutes of footage. This video is going to show off the enemies and bosses found in this footage, and share anything notable about them. This is basically a supercut of the enemies we know about and a final roundup, as this will be the final Enemies and Bosses Appendix episode before release. So let's get into it because we have a lot to cover. First, let's review the enemy categories. There are standard enemies. These are the guys without multiple lives, who you can kill by death blow or by reducing their vitality to 0. They are unnamed and will respawn after sitting at a sculptor's idol. For defeating them, you get experience toward a skill point, coins called sen to be spent on items and upgrades, and sometimes they drop white spirit emblems, which are spent to use your prosthetic tools in combat. Then there are mid-bosses. They are found in the world as you progress, meaning that you aren't locked into an arena with them. They are tied to a fog wall blocking further progression, but can sometimes be bypassed by finding an alternative route, making them optional. Like bosses, they have multiple lives, represented by pips above their vitality bar located at the upper left of the screen. You must defeat them by removing all of the pips, which can only be done by performing death blows on them. Reducing their vitality won't kill them, but lower vitality slows how quickly their posture recovers, which is shown in the upper middle of the screen. Defeating mid-bosses drops any fog walls tied to them. They drop experience, sen, white spirit emblems, and other character progression items like prayer beads. Mid-bosses don't respawn after being defeated. Then there are bosses. They function similarly to mid-bosses in that they have multiple lives represented by pips. Like previous From titles, bosses have an arena in which you are locked in by fog walls at the entrance and exit. Defeating them gives you rewards similar to mid-bosses, as well as important items, including a remnant key item. Lastly, we have the environmental enemies category, even though we've only seen one, which we will cover in the Ashina outskirts. So let's get into it. The most common enemy type in this area we've already seen from the demo and covered in this series in part 3. Keep in mind, besides bosses, we don't have official names for these enemies. So I'm referring to these enemies as Ashigaru, which was the name for the unprofessional foot soldiers employed by the samurai class during the Sengoku period. Next we have the Sentry, who appears to drop nothing upon death based on all the footage I saw. We have Cannon Guy, who I could not find out what he drops because he's just too damn accurate with his cannon. Then we have a couple of big boys. And we are rounding out the standard enemies with some local critters, which include perhaps the most feared enemy in FromSoft's bestiary. For an environmental challenge, we have the Great Serpent, who can kill the shinobi in one deadly strike and must be carefully bypassed using stealth and timing, and of course, stabbing in the eye when all else fails. There are 4 mid-bosses in the Ashina outskirts, 2 of which we saw in the demo. First we have Kawarada, who is very similar to Tenzen but has this grab attack. Then we have the Chained Ogre, who is now located at the stairs where Tenzen was located in the demo, and he now has angry red eyes. These indicate he is weak against fire, something that can be learned by eavesdropping on the Ashigaru located right down the stairs from him. There have also been trees added to this location to grapple onto when the ogre chucks you. Tenzin now resides where the Chained Ogre hung out in the demo, and has added some furniture. The final mid-boss is something of a secret and may be a boss that you're intended to come back to later. This is the Headless, and he is much as he was in the demo, but perhaps teleporting around even more than he did previously. The boss of the Ashina outskirts is Gyubu the Demon, and he does not want you getting past him and through the gate. His horse will startle against the Firecracker prosthetic tool, something that is learned by eavesdropping on an Ishigaru located just before the boss arena, who laments his horse dying after being startled by a loud noise. The most common enemy type in the Harada states are these bandits razing the place. And we also have this bandit who found a mushroom. Located before Lady Butterfly, these monk-looking enemies apparently have an ability that is supposed to prepare you for Lady Butterfly. The beasts of the Harada states are much the same, but drop more experience. There are two mid-bosses, both shown in the Game Informer coverage and in Appendix Episode 3.2. The boss of Harada states is Lady Butterfly, and maybe because she was off limits or she was not fought, there isn't much footage of her. The final area is the Sampo Temple, and the most common enemy here are the monks of this corrupted temple.
Oh my god, what is that? They're throwing like heat-seeking missiles.
Then we have a couple of big boys. We find the bandit-type enemies we found at the Harada Estates. Included among the bandits, we find the local chapter of the Large Hat and Darth Maul fan club. Things start to get a little weird, and we come face to face with centipede-themed enemies. These ones throw fire at you. These ones spit silver liquid at you and drive the local crickets wild, and seem not to die. And these ones unleash their inner centipede on you, who also have trouble in the dying department. Keeping things weird, here are some goblin-looking dudes. Rounding out the standard enemies, we have the wildlife of the temple. There are two mid-bosses shown. This Voldo cosplayer likes to throw fire and sprout centipedes out of his back. And this mid-boss was not to be shown, but he was anyways. And that is what we know about the enemies and bosses of Sekiro so far. As I mentioned, this is the final enemies and bosses video before Sekiro releases in about a week. This video took longer to collate the information than I anticipated, but I am still planning on doing another appendix episode on the gameplay and mechanics. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. I have a lot of exciting Sekiro content planned once the game releases. If you would like to support me, you can contribute to the equipment costs and help me make better videos by following these links and donating. Anyone who donates will get an enemy in my videos named in their honor, and then swiftly executed. So if you ever wanted to see a fictional person with your name sliced up, this is a dream scenario for you. Thanks for watching.